You're on. You are on. And now we're all on. Okay. We've hit the magic recordometer. Cool. Let's have a podcast. All right. Welcome, folks. We're just about done with season 11 of Mention and Dispatches. And so here we go on episode 12. Our guest today, Mr. Rich from Wargame Design Studio, is joining us. Mr. Rich, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Brant. Thank you very much for having me on.
Cool. Appreciate you being here. And if we've got the Wargame Design Studio guys here to talk about some stuff, of course, we had to drag our boy Cyrano back into the show. Jim, how's it going?
Good afternoon. I'm sorry, I was just dragging my War and Peace level of thickness bundle of questions out from my closet.
So for those that don't know, Jim has been a playtester over the years for different things that the Wargame Design Studio guys have worked on, and has a deep and well chronicled love of many of their games. Although, has poked fun at the user interface on occasion as well. For those that don't necessarily know the name Wargame Design Studio, this is a bit of an evolution because WDS has taken over what used to be John Tiller Software after John passed away a year and change. Has it been 2 years yet? It's probably been over 2 years at this point, hasn't it?
It's actually been 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Wow. So yeah, we sadly lost John, and then the Wargame Design Studio guys have taken over John's business, and I don't want to accidentally misrepresent something. Rich, bail me out here. How's all this pieced together? You guys just simply bought all the IP, or what all happened there that you're allowed to share?
Yeah, we purchased, David and I purchased the intellectual property rights. So all the source code, all the existing programs, all the games that have been published, the website, so on and so forth. So, we have complete control over his catalog that he was publishing as a solo. Now, that does not include the old Talonsoft Battleground games or the handful of campaign series games that are owned by Matrix. So everything else, though, that was published through HPS Simulations, then in John Tiller Software starting in 2010, and then we've carried forward with that.
Okay. And so now it's a common, obviously there's still some of the Tiller software engines that you guys are building off of. Have you started any development on completely new or separate engines that don't have a grounding in what John had originally done with JTS?
We do have something running. Actually, John did start it, but his goal with the new engine was to be multi-platform support. And, we're not really excited about tablets and phones and whatnot. Your price point, people want to spend, $2 for an app. So that's not an area that we're leaning towards. And really with actually, like you and I exchanged an email about here earlier, for the Mac OS, there's a variety of emulation packages out there, and there's not a huge segment of our customer base that are native Mac OS users. So anyways, we have completely rebuilt that from the ground up. So that is an operational level game. I'm not going to drop too much about that because we still have a lot of work to do. So we're no less than 12 months out before anything's seen with that. But assuming it comes together well, we plan to have quite a lot of content with that new engine.
Yeah, don't give away any trade secrets here, but yes, me and my darn Macs that tend to foil my digital gaming desires. So, Jim, go ahead, make fun of me.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Well, you can work around that. But I would just like to say, it's not. I don't like vaporware. I don't like it when companies talk a lot about, hey, we're doing this and we're doing that, and you're going to see it soon, and soon becomes a year, soon becomes 3 years, and then you just never see it. I think that just frustrates people. So we tend to hold things pretty close to the chest. I will probably drop a few little tidbits here and there for you today, but again, we want to start talking about something when it's pretty close to the point where people are going to be able to take it for a spin themselves.
I'm going to drop names and I'm going to make fun of somebody. As of right now, as we are recording this over Thanksgiving weekend, on Hex Wars website under featured games, Atlanta 1864, coming soon, November 2022. That is followed closely by Desert War, World War II, coming soon, December 2022. So yeah, your vaporware comparison is apt in this case. Come on, guys, at least update the website and quit lying to us about it's coming soon a year ago. So
exactly.
But Jim, you were making fun of me in there for Mac stuff.
Oh yeah, I was just going to tell you to buy a gaming computer.
I don't need to. I've got my son's gaming computers. If I really
okay. Well, then don't cry when games won't play on the Mac, because nobody plays games on the Mac. You know that.
I don't cry. I got my table up here in the office. I put games on the table and play.
Okay. Those things all by themselves are fascinating, and like I said, it's my volume of questions runs roughly to 1 million pages, roughly the length of the Bible. Borrowing, I think that's a line from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. But let me start here. So, did I hear you say that Dr. Tiller's foray into the platforms like the tablets and the phones, that's done? Question mark.
With emphasis, done.
Is that done?
So they have aged out. They have aged out of most of the stores due to constant updates by the OSs, and so we don't have the programming resources to keep up with that at this time. Additionally, like we've done with the full title treatments, we generally are trying to get graphics updated and make other enhancements. So we just really don't have the resources to allocate to that at this point. I'm not going to say that you'll never see a mobile app again, but as of this time, it's not something we are actively working on.
I'm going to follow that right up with the other thing you sort of suggested. You didn't say it, but it is implied. No, actually, Brant said it because he said the words Hex War. Do you have any interest in being in the Steam space?
Well, interest, yes. Cautiously interested. Our games are very deep. We have a tremendous amount of content that goes into them, tremendous amount of OOB research and references and, scenarios. Generally speaking, all of our games have 40, 50, 60, 200, whatever. They're just very rich in content. And the Steam space is known for their, 75% off sale. You can get this game for $8. And that in and of itself does not excite us. Because just imagine how many we'd have to sell to, With that said, we are exploring it. If all goes well, we will see at least one title make a showing in 2024 to kind of test the waters and see how it's received. We might be pleasantly surprised and it really takes off. It just remains to be seen, but it is something we are exploring. Yes.
I'll let me lay out my hands here. You know this, Rich, and I know you know this, Brent. You referred to it just so that everybody understands. I've been with this series, playing it as a player, I want to be clear, since our den, right? And while those games have evolved and changed, I think I have all of them. I'd have to check again. I think I have all of them. So I'm an immense fan when I say this to you. Are you concerned that if you walk into the Steam space, you wind up with 100 reviews that say, God, the graphics on this suck?
Well, and that's a very realistic concern because, 30 Years War, which I think is, probably a better looking game than any game that's been published, from this studio at all through John or through us or any of it. I think the graphics are great. But the graphics that a Hex and Chit wargamer expects and will work with is radically different than a real-time strategy gamer or first-person shooter. The expectations are differently, but the products are radically different, right?
Mm-hmm. So all right,
graphics are very subjective.
Oh yes.
So personally, I think both from a 2D and a 3D perspective, 30 Years War is a beautiful game. It allows us to cover the topic, and it looks good. Now, would the masses say that on Steam? I don't know.
All right, I'll take your segue and say, yes, we are excited. And one of the reasons we wanted to have you on is because you've released a new game, The 30 Years War. And we're not going to dive too deeply into it, but I do want to ask 3 questions about it, all related to the more general issue of WDS. Number one, number one, on the graphics issue, how many people do you have doing graphics 2D, 3D? And I get to ask a follow-up on that one.
Right. So we've got some new people working with us. There were there was a one artist that did the units images. So that's what you see in the hex info area at the bottom. So if you click a hex and then the large pictures at the bottom. So one artist did that. We had another artist that did the 3D figures in all their various poses. And then we have another artist who's also the graphics coordinator that pulls the 2D together. And so he's done various elements from there's probably 2 or 3 other graphics people that have contributed to those features. And then he'll do a lot of the 2D icons and things of that sort. So, 3 people worked on this, and all 3 of them, Frank's been around a while. He's done a lot of the Civil War battles enhancements that have taken place since 2016. But Manuel with the units images, and then Nick Ferry, Manuel, this is his first game with us. So those unit cards are brand new for him. Nick's been with us working with WDS. He never worked with us as John Tiller Software. So all pretty much new. So we're in the process of changing the team over.
Okay. Related question follow-up. Your hex info area and your 2D counters are the best you've ever done. And I'm someone who has seen them all, I think, again. They're shockingly good. I was just I'm delighted.
Not all, at least enough to have an informed opinion.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Thank you for saving me from all. All is a thing we have to do very cautiously, especially with the catalog.
How many there's games? 110 titles. So
is that right?
Go
okay,
ahead,
I don't have that many. Okay, I've got a lot. I do. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Because I don't know that you ever dove into Kriegsmarine, right?
Yeah, I did. I've got.
Did you?
Sitting right here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go in and find out what I'm missing. I think I just accepted a challenge. But I have to ask, what drives you to keep trying with 3D? I will say this. As you know, we've done live streams on my channel of the games. We've shown them live. We've shown them to people. And people do call out and say, hey, show us the 3D. I will never play that way. My head doesn't work that way. I love your 2D graphics. I'm a hex encounter. What drives you to try to make the 3D better, which I have sort of taken over the many years as a chimerical task, something you're never going to set, because the 3D gamers are never going to be happy with you.
You're right. You're right. Disclaimer, I too am a 2D gamer. I mean, I love the amount of information that I can see on the map in 2D view. I just, that's the way my brain works. I want all those inputs at once. So it's extremely rare for me personally to drop down into 3D. However, there's a sizable number of our customers that repeatedly ask for 3D, especially when you're in the pre-20th century space. Not as much of an issue for the World War II guys and the modern guys, but the Napoleonics, musket and pike, Civil War battles. Yeah, there is a significant number of people that want 3D. And so you see what we continue to do. So, we published 7 Years War without 3D.
Yes, you did. And when I play tested that, I play tested that game. And when I play tested that game, I went down, discovered there was no 3D, and I thought somebody over there had seen the light and had finally decided to dedicate resources another way. I guess I find myself unshockingly in a minority.
Yeah. So new territory.
And really,
for you, huh,
I will. Yeah. What's that?
That's this new territory for Jim, being in the minority about something.
Yeah.
As of this discussion, we will not publish a pre-20th century game without 3D support.
Wow.
The feedback that we receive from the customer base is strong enough to continue to make that a thing. And even amongst 2D players, there's people that will go between 2D and 3D. So, and it's an easy scroll of the mouse wheel to move between them. So anyways, yes, there. Now, we have people asking for it in the World War II games too, Panzer campaigns and Panzer battles, they're looking for 3D there as well. So I don't know where we'll move on that, but I can speak for the pre-20th century side is we're sticking with 3D implementations too.
So it is said. All right, question number 2. What are your 3 biggest selling eras?
Well, World War II, hands down.
Hands down. Okay. And is that when you look at that, when you say World War II, are you combining PCC with PZB and squad battles?
Yeah, that is a all-in discussion there. That's okay. I'm lumping everything there. Panzer Campaigns is probably the highest selling, but it's got the most number of titles in the series. And it's also been around quite a while. If you remember back to the day when, and I don't want to share too much, but there was a transition period when John left Talonsoft, who was acquired by Take-Two, and he was beginning to publish with HPS. There was a lag to where, Campaign 1776 came out, and then you had a couple different Panzer Campaigns titles, but you didn't have any Napoleonics or Civil War, which was very noticeable because that's primarily what he was publishing with Talonsoft, outside of the campaign series. So anyways, there was some lag on that front end. But yeah, so World War II, which if I need to quantify that further, not on a title per title basis, but on a series basis, then Panzer Campaigns would be the top. But then you have American Civil War and Napoleonics.
Which is pretty much true of every kind of war game ever in the history of wargaming.
That's right.
A quick question, Rich. Just I'm going to steal the mic from Jim for just a second. For the listeners, because we've got a lot of loyal listeners who may not be all that familiar with the different series that you're describing, can you give them the 1 sentence or 2 sentence difference between Panzer Campaigns versus Panzer Battles?
Sure, and if we could take just a couple minutes, I'll just do a high-level commentary on each one of our published series.
Hell yeah.
we currently have 12 different series of games. Panzer Campaigns, which we were just speaking of, is World War II based. It's outside of the name. It actually spreads out into the Pacific as well, but it's primarily focused on Eastern and Western Europe, and then North Africa. It has 1 kilometer hexes and 2-hour turns. Then we have Panzer Battles. That is kind of a sweet spot between squad battles and Panzer Campaigns. It has 250 meter hexes and 30-minute turns, so platoon-size units. Then we have Squad Battles, which has also been mentioned a couple times here this today. That is 40-meter hexes and 5-minute turns. And Squad Battles, really, that's the series that has the most diversity in it. We go from Spanish Civil War to the Winter War between Finland and Russia. Got several World War II titles, Vietnam, the First Korean War, just a whole plethora, Soviet-Afghan War, modern campaign, so on and so forth. So there's or modern war, excuse me. So there's a lot of ground that covers. Then we have Strategic War, which is 10-kilometer hexes and 2-day turns. Units are usually at the division or brigade level. Modern Campaigns is closely related to Panzer Campaigns. The game scale is 1-mile hexes and 2-hour turns. So that's all hypothetical for the most part, except Middle East. The game is Middle East 67, but it has some 48 and 73 content as well. First World War Campaigns is also a close cousin of Panzer Campaigns. 1-kilometer hexes, 2-hour turns. And Ed Williams is heading that up and moving through, moving through 1914 at this point. So got 3 titles on that. On the modern side, that almost brings us to a close, but we have 2 real-time engines, naval campaigns and modern air power. So they're pausable. You click the button, you start the game, everything starts rolling. You can accelerate the time up to 10 times the actual speed, or you can pause it. So if you want to issue commands like midway, you want to do aircraft, flight operations, you want to, bring your aircraft out of the hangar, you want to assign strike packages and whatnot, you can do that with the game paused and then hit resume and let things roll again. So that's kind of up to the break point of, the 20th century. And then we go back into, we have Civil War battles. So that's a very popular series, as we mentioned, 125-yard hexes, 20-minute turns. Units are usually regimental level. Then we have Napoleonic battles, and that's 100-meter hexes. And there's kind of a split in that series between 10 and 15-minute turns. And then you have units or battalions. And we also have musket and pike, which is also based, it's a close cousin to Napoleonics. We're using the 100-meter hexes as well. Units on that, depending on the conflict, can be battalion or lower. And then finally, we have the early American War series, which is company scale, and that's 125-foot hexes and 5-minute turns. So anyways, there's a high-level view of that.
All right, cool. That'll help catch the audience up some there on what some of these different games are as we're asking. So folks, if you need to pause and rewind and refer back to the series we're talking about here, there you go. There's the succinct version of it. Or you could just go hit the website and have the website open as a companion while you're listening to us.
Yeah. So there's a tab up there that says game series, and it'll give you all of that information too.
So as that is so, and as those are the ones that you have, and yet, I guess I would say, because Brant's absolutely right. World War II, ACW, and of course Napoleonics, the greatest of all periods, are the things that make wargamers go. And and the first game was Bulge, the second game was Waterloo, and it's just gone on from there. The question I ask though is, you have taken a dive into some really arcane periods of military history, whether it be the early American War stuff, or the one I particularly wanted to ask about because it's relevant to today. How do you decide to go into a period like musket and pike, which let's face it, despite its significance, despite the level of interest those of us like me have in it, is not exactly what we would say a coffee table type marquee game. Is that something you decide corporately, or is that something that someone comes to you from your development team and says, hey, I think we should do this?
Right. Let me make one clarifying statement. So the series title is Musket and Pike, but basically that should give you the idea that it can cover, with that engine, anything from pikes and muskets, or just muskets. Okay. So, so it's kind of a broad brush that it's covering a rather large time scale. I think we're in the mid 1500s up to the late 1700s with the currently published titles. Mm-hmm. So, how do we do this? Well, a lot of it's interest driven. So, and this has been the case since John left, started publishing with HPS. There's a certain, everybody wants a Gettysburg game. Everybody wants a Bulge game. Everybody wants a Waterloo game, right? But once you start veering from that, it really, we have guys that work with us that are what we call scenario designers. So they're the subject experts for a specific game, and they'll come to us. They have a passion about it. For example, the Renaissance, Rich White, who is also the scenario designer for 30 Years War, he really loved that period, and he wanted to do a game on it. So, we just take a gander at it and is like, can we have enough content here to generate a game, right? A self-standing game. And, do we think that it will float? Do we think we'll at least sell enough copies to make a little bit of money on it? That kind of sets us apart from your typical company. Is we don't necessarily make decisions based on, well, that's a moneymaker. Yeah, we're gonna do that, and everything else just kind of falls to the wayside. No, I mean, we're war gamers ourselves, so we want to work with these niche products. We want to bring these to the table because most cases they're not going to make it any other way. So we don't have your typical corporate discussion to say, well, here's a topic and can it make it? So we have a base threshold, and if we say if we can make at least this number of sales, let's roll with it. And then if we see, as we've got a series, well, everything that you see published for Musket and Pike has crossed that threshold. So you'll see more in this series because at least as of this discussion, it's being well received. That answer your question?
It does. It does. And that, I guess, sort of wanders me down the road to ask, what's been your biggest disappointment?
My biggest disappointment.
What game did you put out there that you thought would do better than it did? Maybe give it some love.
Yeah, I guess just looking back, because again, David and I took over from John Tiller Software. We made WDS, but I personally have been involved with John since 1998. So I've got a little, 25 years involved with this. Really, it's kind of shocking how poorly the Squad Battles games have been received. I would have expected them to be, just top tier. What's that?
I knew it. If I actually had I written it down, I would have written that down. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, for whatever reason, and they are some very enjoyable games. Again, like we were talking, 2D gamer, but I'm a nuts and bolts guy. I like detail and whatnot, and you can really have some enjoyable scenario playthroughs in that engine. But on a series by series basis, that's probably the poorest performing that we have. But yet there's a variety of topics to choose from. And it's, and we've made it, we've made some significant improvements with just the 401 updates that came out earlier this year. So
I want to say, and as someone who, I've got sitting, where did it go? There it is. I've got my Advance of the Reich sitting right up there. We have actually we've had a live stream of Advance of the Reich on my channel. Please go take a look at it. This is an uncompensated, unsolicited opinion. The squad battle system, to me, to Jim, to Cyrano, notice all my qualifiers, renders squad leader utterly obsolete. I don't know why you'd play it. I had this moment of epiphany when I was playing that game for one of the 1,000 times I've played it, and I realized, holy cow, it's managing all those arcane die rolls squad leader and its successors make, and it manages them so quickly.
Right. Jim, I realize engagement is generally a good thing for content creators, but you're going to have the entire ASL community coming after us with torches and pitchforks.
Bring it.
I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Can you warn me before you're going to start tossing asshole grenades out like this?
Sorry. The answer to your question, Brant, is no. You and I have known each other a long time, and that is not going to start now.
That's true. That's true. I should have known to expect that.
Yeah, and then I could not interview you and not ask this question, which to me is the most important. I know. Well, you were with Dr. Tiller a long time. I know that you've been with the company a long time. What is it about Talonsoft, Tillersoft, HPS, now WDS. You seem to have figured out 30 years ago to make easy to access multiplayer work. What did you figure out that the rest of this industry is unable to? I cannot count how many times I have written to a company and said, how could you release this game without multiplayer when Talonsoft, when Tiller, when WDS had this 30 years ago? And please tell the world that, can we talk about what you're going to be doing with multiplayer? Because it makes me fuzzy inside.
So I'm assuming that you mean your online real-time connectivity is correct?
Yes. Because that's fair. You've always had PBEM. You've always had play by email. That's always been there. And by the way, it works great. It's how when I was a play tester for y'all, that's how the various folks I played with, that's how we did it. But I mean the really cool, and again, go to my channel, you'll see us doing it, real-time multiplayer. It's so much fun. So anyway, yes, that's what I meant.
It really is, because so I ran 3 conventions, the 3 TillerCons, and that's how we did it. I brought a whole truckload of computers. We set them up and we just had I forget what it was, 30 or 40 PC network. And we just had, one-on-ones or 2 or 3 on 2 and 3. And, we gamed that way the whole 3-day convention. And I agree that is the most enjoyable way to play. It's just the time constraints, trying to get people's schedules together and just carving out, several hours at a pop to sit there and play. For me, that's a challenge. The module, it's based off direct play. Now, of course, Microsoft has, tombstoned that. So we're gradually making changes to make it for a more modern technology base. But you're able to assign, you got a commander for a side, and you can take it and say, all right, well, here's this guy's, you're commanding 2 core, and this guy's got 2 core, and I'll take the remaining core and be an overall command. And then everybody can move at the same time and in control of just their own forces. So it really, we were doing it again at TillerCon, and, you got batteries just unleashing, just cannon fire and small arms and whatnot. And it's just chaotic. And it really just brings out the flavor of a battle. It's great. Anyways. So, and we have plans to enhance that, and we're also aiming to bring some of those elements into play by email as well. So that, because currently, if you want to play a multiplayer play by email game, you have to manually, everybody keeps track of their own troops. They have to move it, then they have to email the turn to the next guy, so on and so forth. So we're looking at bringing some of those enhancements over as well.
Oh, that's a tidbit, kids. Yes, it was. And that's that makes me happy inside.
Now Jim's trying to figure out how you can get the smoke to appear in the messages when the play by email notification comes in.
Oh no, I would the ability to assign commands in PBEM. Ooh, that's super nice. Along that line, is it true that we will be seeing updates to and perhaps even expansions for the Strategic War series?
Yes, of course. You always got to have the caveat out there. If things, Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, as the saying goes. We are actively working on that. If all goes well, in less than 6 months, you should see updates for the existing 2 games. That will be nice updates, not just tiny little tweaks. And then we have more content in development for the series as well.
For those who don't know, and correct me if I say anything amiss, Strategic War, 10 kilometers per hex, 2-day turns. Units are at division and brigade, and the intention was to be able to play the entirety of World War II. Think that Empire, kids. Or think Europa, kids, is what I should say.
Well, a question on that, though, then.
Goes well,
go ahead, Rich.
Go ahead.
What?
I was just going to say, if all goes well, we will have a final title that brings it all together. So anyways, go ahead, Brant.
So what I was going to ask in terms of playing that entirety of World War II, and Jim's heard variations on this theme before when I've asked other folks. One of the pet peeves that I have with those big grand strategic games is a lot of them tend to take what actually happened in World War II and just sort of take the existing events, put them in a bag, shake it around a little bit, and then dump them out in varying sequences. But they all start in 39, they all end in 45, and only the things that actually happen kind of get shuffled around. And you never get something truly wacky like the Russians invading Turkey or Spain actually getting involved in the war instead of just recovering from the one they just had, or whatever other weirdness you get out there. In terms of a big grand strategic World War II game, how much before the Germans rolling into Poland do you start? How far past the fall of Berlin or the A-bombs dropping on Japan do you continue to go? How much of a spread and not how ahistorical can you get? Because I'm not trying to ask, like, are you going to bring us the digital version of Mississippi Banzai or something ridiculous like that? But how much leeway do you get for the plausible, even if not actually happened in history? kind of things.
Well, so that's kind of a hallmark of our games is so you will start with historical context, accurate OOBs to the best of our ability. You'll start a scenario, whether it's a small scenario, a huge scenario. We're going to set it up with the information that we have, right? But we're not going to constrain it to the point that you can only do X, Y, and Z. So in the context of what you're asking, there's nothing to prevent Russia from invading Turkey. If that's the way the game flows, it just depends on the length of the scenario. Now, the starting point would almost assuredly be Germany's invasion of Poland. I can't imagine it starting anywhere else. You got Czechoslovakia before that, but that's not where really hostilities really kicked up. So Poland would probably kick it off. And then you could have a variable ending at the end where it didn't have to end in the middle of 1945 either. It could end earlier or it could end later, just depending on how the battles played out. There's just so much we could get into with that. How are replacements handled, and how is industry impacted and modeled, and so on and so forth. And that particular game doesn't exist at this point, so not too sure that we should spend a bunch of time on that. But as a whole, for example, Campaign Waterloo. Okay, it starts with the French coming into Charleroi, and it's a map roughly the size of Rhode Island. So you don't have to play that campaign scenario and go to Quatre Bras and Ligny and do all of that in those sequences. You don't have to. You can make your own choices and play your own battles in that scenario. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that I've probably played Campaign Waterloo's grand campaign a dozen times, and we have never had the final fight at Waterloo.
Right.
Quatre Bras gets ugly every single time, but Waterloo, no. That's
so.
And
unstained by blood.
Again, for me, I want historical accuracy. I want the real people that were there fighting it. I want the weaponry to be proper. But I don't necessarily. I really don't want to be constrained by what my historical counterpart chose to do. I want to be able to alter that. Now, if somebody does want to play our games that way, well, you can play 2-player hot seat, and you can control both sides of the forces, and you can meticulously move precisely how things panned out. You can do that. That's just not how I game.
And since you're the designer, you get to decide.
Okay, I wasn't going to ask this micro question, but you just suggested it. It is a micro question. In the Napoleonic series, or if you want to raise it to all of the series, if you can think of it offhand, what's the most controversial optional rule?
Most controversial? Gee.
Yeah, this is the one that is the most debated.
Gosh, man, you're a wargamer. You run in the same circles as I do. Everything's debated.
I said most debated.
Yeah.
So 2 things. One, I'm betting Jim already has his own answer to this.
Oh, I know what mine is, but that's not relevant.
but the second thing, Rich, to follow up your comment, one of my all-time favorite moments on Board Game Geek were 2 guys that got into an argument over the definition of what is a rules layer.
There you have it. And I say that only because if you don't know, one of the things about Wargame Design Studios is it isn't a sandbox, and it isn't a loose box of wire and cat hair. There are rules, there are structures. They're actually quite deep when you study them. And by the way, if you want to be good at them, you should. But the designers have consistently acknowledged that there are different views about different things in different campaigns. And as a result, there's always, at least a minimum of a dozen optional rules that you can play with to try to make it suit what your vision of the history is. I was a playtester in the Peninsular War. I lost a grim fight about movement disorder. I still don't like it. And I'm glad it's an optional rule, but upon reflection, it struck me that it's one of the real strengths of the series is that each game isn't one thing, it's many, built partially by the playtesters, but ultimately built by those who play the game, and you give them the tools to do that.
Right. Yeah, so that particular rule has undergone significant refinement since the playtesting for Peninsula took place. So you might want to try it again. I choose to use that quite regularly myself, so I like it. there's a divide probably within the Napoleonic community of those who like to play in phases and those who like to play in turns. What I mean by that is
that's a legacy of Battleground. Right. That's got to be, doesn't it?
So you have your discrete turns, offensive movement, defensive fire, offensive fire, and then melee. And then you repeat it for the other side. Or turns where you can do everything all in one turn, and then the other guy takes his turn. My preference is the happy middle ground that we've introduced, the discrete melee subphase. So you can move and fire in that sequence, but you can't conduct melees until its own phase. So you get the best of both worlds, because that's the problem was people doing blitzkrieg on the Napoleonic battlefield when they'd blow a hole in a line and then pour troops through it and then blow a hole in the second defensive line. So that's not possible using that rule set. So, that's, automated defensive fire and optional melee resolution. So those are my preferences. I do not like manual defensive fire, which puts you into discrete phases, because then you have, while I understand you get complete control, but then guys can march across the field, across your line of sight, and then down into a ravine, and then you can't shoot at them the next turn, and they just crossed right in front of you. So, that's not my favorite.
And we have offered this, A, because it fascinates me, but B, it would offer us an opportunity to rebuke those or rebut those who claim we didn't go deep enough into the weeds in the WDS games, because boy, oh boy, did we just. I don't think you have any idea what we're talking about if you played, but they are important and of great. And actually, I want to think,
Jim, let's face it, if we just dug into the weeds of WDS games, this would be like a 14-hour series instead of an hour and change podcast.
At no point have I gotten into the, God, I want to do that. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to resist myself.
The 11th season of the Armchair Dragoons podcast, mentioned in dispatches, is graciously supported by all of our Patreon supporters who pledged at the top level. A huge thank you to Chet Bell, Hellcat6, Patrick Garrity, Fred Stogg and his walking companion, Mike Quigley, Joseph Knorr, Trep Corey, Stagger Wing, Mark Talk and Kevin Bertram for their support of the Armchair Dragoons, which helps us bring you the best strategy gaming content on the web. You too can sign up as a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/armchairdragoons.
Brant, you certainly know him. Mike Orwick, our guy OJ, shout out OJ. Just so Rich, you have a gigantic fan of all your World War I releases in Mike Orwick, OJ's dad, we call him on our calls, and he specifically wanted to know, when do I get the rest of the First World War?
Right. Well, Ed Williams is heading that up. He does a fantastic job of research and whatnot. I mean, he's in the zone, and we provide him support as he needs it. But basically, we don't mess with him. We let him work at his own pace. So I don't know. I'm not really sure when you're going to get it. We might see one in 2024. We might see another title after that. I know there are multiple titles in development as of this conversation. So it's by no means, we've committed to Ed to publish whatever he produces. So, as long as we're in business and as long as he's producing games, we will keep publishing them.
And this again, my second unsolicited, uncompensated opinion, there is no board game, none, zero, that is better than East Prussia 14, France 14, and Serbia 14 for the topic. You just can't beat it. There is none. And I have put out an open challenge on that subject many times, and no one has ever answered it. So you don't even, this sounds like more confrontational than I intended. So you're not even certain which title would be next whenever that is?
Yeah, I don't want to answer that because Ed, he's got a couple in production, and he might say, well, I feel this one's ready to go, and I don't want to have obligated him to something else.
Sure. Just hoping to get
way to go, Jim, shoehorning in on their production decision making.
As if. But as if. But no, it's I just want to get to the Somme before I die. That's it. So
spoken like a member of the BEF.
That's wow, that's so. I guess along that line, as we look to the new year, as we look to 2024, what are the things you can tell us are coming?
Well, you should see.
And you don't have to do them in order, right? I mean, we're not going to hold you to whatever
Right.
order you answer these in.
Yeah. So that's the thing about, our development, us as a development house. I mean, we've got some games that took longer than a decade to bring to publication. So, everything until we start saying, hey, here's a preview on it, and we're posting that on our website, take it all with a grain of salt, because it could take
I'm very
a while.
much in touch with the long production lead time of a war game.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to get the research right, it takes a long time. And then again, our scenario designers, they're not full-time employees. These guys work, they work day jobs. So, they're fitting this in their free time. You are due to see one completely new series make its debt in 2024, and if it goes well, that could spawn a dozen or more titles. So that's completely new topic that we've never published anything on as John Tiller or Wargame Design Studios. So then we have. There might be another series that makes a debut in 2024 as well. Also, new topics, similar series to something that's already been in existence, but totally new topics. So I just want to be vague. Actually, if you check out Tally Ho Corner, we mentioned one of them. Got a screenshot of a Zulu war up there, so I will quantify that. But that's not the, that's the similar engine to what we've already published, similar scale. The other one that's completely new, I want to leave a little bit of room on that one. So, and then we also have multiple musket and pike titles in development. We've got multiple Panzer campaigns. We've got multiple Panzer battles in development, so on and so forth. I mean, we have a pretty full pipeline coming in.
Oh, yes. I forgot to check out Tim Stone's page. Wow. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, that was published at the end of October.
Okay.
So we did an interview with him as well.
Rich, every now and then Jim does this on the podcast. He gets distracted by something and he kind of sounds like Gollum talking to himself. He's running through the conversation in his head and only verbalizing like half of it. It's hell to edit, right? I mean, when Jim's starting to have these sort of quasi inner monologues, but you're only privy to half of it because he doesn't verbalize it all. You get this a bunch on podcasts. So. That's I'm not wrong, right?
No, I was about to say it's unkind but true. That is it. Well, and okay, well, I will have to read that because I did hear about the Zulus and I want to find out more about Zulus. So we'll do that over at Tim Stone's Tally Ho Corner. Full credit where credit is due.
And it's linked to the episode here, so folks can go see it.
Yeah, go check out that.
It'll be a couple of weeks in the rearview mirror by the time you're reading this.
Yep. I would not be serving my friend, and Brant's much longer a friend and acquaintance, Dr. James Starrett, if I didn't ask the question that everyone always asks about games in the Tiller family. Does the AI work yet?
I think that you would be pleasantly surprised by your experience running 30 Years War. Some changes have been made. It's an ongoing process. That's not an area John really spent much time on, to just be frank. But it is something that we've been addressing. Pathfinding is significantly better already in all the pre 20th century games. That code's already in place. But a lot of the decision processes, we had some play testers said that the getting started scenario was too hard in 30 Years War, that the AI was taking it to them. So your mileage may vary, but we inherited the support thought process from John that when we provide an update, we update the whole series of games. And Napoleonics and Musket and Pike are very similar. They're close cousins in the code base realm. So all of those features are getting ported to the older games as well. So you can go grab an update and see how it runs. I will say that about on December 1st, as of this discussion, we're due to roll out a sequential update for Napoleonics and Civil War battles that's got some AI fixes. We found a couple bugs that need addressed right away, but then it's also got some more enhancements. So really my opinion doesn't matter at all. Load up the game, see what you think. The feedback I'm getting is the AI is getting better. But I will always say, will you ever get, an AI that's situationally aware and be able to conduct a massive campaign against you and take it to you like a true Napoleonic commander? I'm not sure that we'll be able to do that. I mean, we're not a $1 billion company, so, our resources are limited. So that's my disclaimer.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have been challenged by the man responsible for the company. Take it to it and see what you can do. But by the same token, while that sounds like a criticism, it isn't, because I do want to flip the script. I'll pick one just off the top of my head. What year, if you know, was Jena Auerstadt released, campaign?
What was that? 2006?
2006. So we're talking 17 years. Folks, this company, and I preach this constantly, this company is releasing patches for a game that many people haven't paid a nickel into in 17 years. I bought it at launch. I have my jewel case. I think I had to send you a picture of my jewel case, didn't I, once? When I wanted my...
to get it transferred to the JTS serial numbers? Yeah, you probably did.
I had to transfer. I think I may have photographed all
Video Game Geek says it was released in October of 06.
06. Oh, wow. So on the anniversary of the battle. Very nicely done. This company continues to support these games at a level that I believe is unmatched anywhere in the industry, or if it is, it's just matched. It's matched. It is not exceeded. And I am very, very grateful for that. I only had one other question on my gigantic... Well, I have a lot of questions, but Brant said...
Okay, so
Brant told me 1 hour. He told me 1 hour, and I want to be respectful. Is there going to be a holiday sale?
Can I elaborate on what you were just saying?
Oh, please.
Before you go on to your last question?
Heaven, yes, please.
So that also explains why we sell a game that was 17 years old at full price for a new person that's buying it. That's why we don't discount, because they're not Tombstone. We are actively supporting those games. And as the series is updated, they will continue to get free updates as long as we're in business. So as we make new enhancements, bam, they get rolled back. So, we don't bargain bin our titles because we don't abandon them. Okay.
No. And I'm the wrong guy. Right? Because let's face it, in my world, where am I going to get that Jena Auerstadt game? It's right. Either your way or the highway. And so the fact that they're not $1,000 a piece is sufficient for me, but your point is absolutely taken. But on the subject,
your last question.
On the subject of cost of games, is there going to be an exciting WDS end of year sale? ?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We have our winter sale kicks off December 15th. And it will run through, I believe it's January 3rd. We'll run through January 3rd. So December 15th to January 3rd. All titles that have been out longer than a year will be discounted 25%. And then the bulk purchase option, which is if you spend $199, you get an automatic 20% discount off that. So that is in effect for it as well. So you could potentially get 40% off on a title if you buy it in bulk, if you're buying 6 or 7 games at once.
That is, as many people say about some of the bigger sales from the Wargame companies, it is a great sale. It's very, very generous. I'm going to be direct. I don't care. I'm not getting paid for this. It is a very generous thing. On the other hand, there is no more useless sale for me on this planet, because every time I click through, I got that. Yeah, I got that. And it is the penalty I must pay for utterly refusing to wait for games that I super duper want. So that's some December 15th, people. December 15th, credit cards at the ready.
Jim, you're not the only person who runs into that, because how often have we seen that with like the GMT fall sale,
Sure.
or a bunch of the Steam sales, or when people get their Matrix anniversary coupons, they go, well, crap, I got everything I want. So
yeah, I have given away my share of Matrix loyalty coupons for sure.
Yeah, I think many of us have. Rich, obviously, like a good chunk of your time, that's available for gaming is taken up by dealing with WDS and whether testing or marketing or developing or planning or whatever with the game. When you just sit down to play something for fun, when you just want to, just get some enjoyment out of it and not have to think about work, what is it that you're playing?
One of the Napoleonic titles. I'm definitely a Napoleonic gamer, and it would generally speaking be like a huge map meeting engagement where, not a historical battle that's already set up for me, but that we move the forces to meetings. So we're actually, you got to scout and look for your opponent and whatnot. So that's the kind of gaming I enjoy the most.
If you're looking for a huge Napoleonic map, I happen to have a good friend who specializes in such huge maps for their Napoleonic battles. Often twice as large as they need to be in some cases. So,
I haven't left, right? I'm still here. Just checking.
I'm telling you, man, the joke is never going to get old. It's
still funny. I think about it. It's still fun. And I did it.
Yes. So, Rich,
There's
of the
no
tabletop
such thing as
simulator
too
games.
big of a map.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, yeah. There is when you're playing miniatures and you build the map twice as large as it's supposed to be, and you play a 4-hour game and wonder why nobody's in contact.
Fair enough. That's why I play by email.
Yes. and then one of all your best friends in the world reminds you that it looks a whole lot like that scene in Monty Python's Holy Grail where Lancelot is charging at the gate and never quite gets there.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's that happens.
And we'll always remind you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because they're your friends. That's what they do.
Yeah. Pretty much any opportunity we get to bring that back up, we are absolutely going to take it. So. But cool. Rich, we promised to keep this close to an hour just because we wanted to, respect everybody's time on a holiday weekend and absolutely appreciate you being here and spending this time with us and fitting us into the schedule. So thank you very much. And I did want to offer, one last shot. If there's anything else we didn't get to that you wanted to make sure got mentioned on the part of WDS, and whether it's, pimping an upcoming game or a big fix you had to a recent one or a game that, just was recently released but isn't quite getting enough love and attention, whatever last pitch you want to make for the audience, we'll give you a second here to do that before we close up shop for the day.
I appreciate that. Well, probably what I would encourage your listeners to do is go to our website, wargameds.com, and there's a news tab up at the top, and that'll take you to our blog posts, and that'll highlight, like you're talking about, is there a specific game that's come out? Well, 30 Years War was just released, and there's a blog post on it that goes over, what the game contains. We're running a Napoleonic series of articles now. We just posted the 4th installment today. So these, really in-depth articles looking at the game engine and how to work with it and whatnot, so on and so forth. So there's I think we got 130 or 140 blog posts up there. So you want some reading material on your lunch hour, and you want to explore a company that's dedicated to bringing quality war games out. That would be a site worthy of your attention.
And for the audience, we regularly hit that news tab at Wargame DS every week as we're compiling Tuesday Newsday. So we are looking for the cool new thing to make sure that we incorporate it each Tuesday. If they drop something new within the previous week, we've got it linked in there somewhere. But if you're wanting to delve back through a whole bunch of different stuff and get into the nitty gritty under the hood, some of the bug fixes and changes and upgrades and enhancements that they've made, you will find a wealth of information there, because they do not, first of all, it's digital, right? You're not on a page count, but they've taken great liberties with the fact that they are not on a page count. There is no lack of information there for you to go slurp up from the fire hose there. It's a great resource, definitely.
Yes, we tend to have lots of content.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jim, I probably should have said something to you before I threw it to Rich, but did we hit? I know we didn't hit everything. Did we hit enough?
This has been delightful. A lot of, of course I've got a million other questions, but so what? Sent a bunch of them. Hopefully we'll be running very soon a written interview with Rich White, the developer for 30 Years War. That'll be very exciting. And more detailed dive into the 30 Years War. And just a little bit later today, I'm going to hopefully be doing a live play of 30 Years War using real live human multiplayer. Take that.
I guess that's so that's not Saturday Night Fights though, because you're doing that today on a
Yes,
Friday.
we'll be doing it on a Friday. Doing it on an extra game on a Friday because it's Black Friday. Nobody wants to go out anyway, and a bunch of the guys got together and said they wanted a 30 Years War. So it'll be either White Mountain or Brightonfeld. Check it out over at my channel.
Well, that'll be very cool. And so like just look down below this episode and you will see the link to that live stream so you can go back and watch what they said they were about to go do. It's kind of like a digital time machine.
There you go.
You could travel to the past that way. Cool. Mm-hmm. So again, Rich, thank you very much. Jim, thank you very much. And audience, thank you for sticking with us. We got one more episode to go in season 11 of Mentioned in Dispatches here. Again, just a humble plea that if you get a chance, please go throw us a rating on your favorite podcast platform. We seem to have more ratings on iTunes than anywhere else, but we got to get the total count of ratings up high enough that we start showing up in recommendation engines. So you'd think after like 5 or 6 years of doing this that we would start getting recommended to things, but we got to have that engagement factor get up a little bit before the automated engines start kicking in and recommending us to stuff. The other thing I just found out today, Jim, you will get a kick out of this. Something I just found out today. You can actually leave comments. It's built into Spotify that you can leave individual comments on individual episodes in there, and we get a notification that, hey, somebody left a comment on an episode. I had no idea until I got the email saying we had a comment on an episode on Spotify. So I had to remember my password to go log in to go look it up. So that was fun. Yeah. So if you get a chance, again, look, if you think we're only worth 2 stars, fine, throw us a 2-star rating, but we'd like to think we're worth a little more than that. But if you get a chance, please cruise on over there and leave us a rating. Tell your friends about it. Tell your friends about it. Tell your friends to tell their friends about it, and come join us for any of the episodes here in our archives. We've got one more episode. Take a break for the holidays. We'll come back after the ACDC in the spring. When in January, it's in the winter, but after the new year through the spring, we will have season 13 or season 12, and we'll figure out what we're going to do for season 12. Probably in the middle of season 12. But in the meantime, thanks guys for being here. Thank you listeners for being here. And we'll catch you next time on another episode of Mentioned in Dispatches.